The Galactic Council chamber hummed with the low vibration of ancient machinery, its vaulted ceiling alive with the shimmer of stars projected from distant galaxies. Representatives from thousands of species had gathered, a rare occasion when the vast expanse of space narrowed to a single, shared focus. On the central dais, the Council's lead facilitator, an insectoid being with translucent wings, began addressing the assembly. Humanity has formally applied to undergo the test, the facilitator declared, their voice amplified and translated by the chamber's neural network. A wave of murmurs swept through the room, each species whispering in their native tongue. Humans, a reptilian delegate hissed, its emerald scales catching the faint glow of the starlight. The apex predators from that cursed planet? They barely emerged from their planetary conflicts a few centuries ago. A lanky avian species with a crown of shimmering feathers nodded gravely. Their world is a death world. Volcanic eruptions, predatory ecosystems, diseases. It's a miracle they even survived long enough to achieve spaceflight. Yet they think they are ready to join us. The facilitator raised a clawed limb, calling for silence. Their application is valid. Like all species, they are entitled to their opportunity. The test, as you all know, is impartial. But every species has failed on their first attempt, an aquatic ambassador bubbled, their gelatinous form rippling with concern. Even those of us from worlds of peace and abundance struggled with its challenges. What hope do they have coming from a place so violent? They are primitive, an arboreal delegate murmured. Aggressive. They rely on force and instinct, not intellect or diplomacy. The chamber fell quiet as the facilitator continued. We cannot dismiss them based on assumptions. If their world forged them in adversity, they may possess qualities we do not yet understand. Their representatives have arrived. Let us hear them. At the chamber's edge, a human delegation stood, their posture relaxed yet resolute. The one in the center, a scientist or diplomat, it was unclear, stepped forward. The human's appearance was unremarkable compared to the diverse alien forms around them, but their eyes carried an unsettling focus. They surveyed the room before speaking. We thank the Council for allowing us this chance, the human began. Their voice, calm and measured, carried a note of confidence that bordered on arrogance. We are aware of the skepticism surrounding our candidacy. It's no secret that Earth, our home, is considered inhospitable by your standards. But what you see as a disadvantage, we see as our greatest strength. A faint ripple of disapproval moved through the Council. The human continued, undeterred. You call Earth a death world, they said, pacing slowly as if addressing a lecture hall. To us, it's simply home. Yes, we've faced predators larger than us, diseases that nearly wiped us out, and disasters that reshaped continents. And yet, here we are, not just surviving but thriving. Every challenge made us stronger. Every crisis taught us something new. A hulking, crystalline delegate spoke up, its voice resonating like a chime. Survival alone is not enough. The test evaluates more than brute endurance. It measures intelligence, morality, and cooperation. Traits that, forgive my candor, your species is not known for. The human nodded thoughtfully. We've heard the stories of other species' attempts. How some collapsed under the weight of the moral dilemmas presented to them. How others, even those from peaceful worlds, turned on each other when the pressure became too great. We understand the stakes. Do you? The avian delegate interjected. The test is not designed to accommodate savagery. It exposes a species' deepest flaws. Your kind's history of war and conquest may doom you before you even begin. The human allowed a small, almost imperceptible smile. War and conquest are part of our history, yes. But so are innovation, resilience, and cooperation. You see us as violent because of where we come from, but you don't see the full picture. Our ability to adapt is unmatched. Our capacity for unity in the face of disaster is unparalleled. A low murmur of skepticism rippled through the assembly again, but there were no further interruptions. The human looked directly at the facilitator. Give us the test. Let us show you what we've learned from a world where failure means extinction. The facilitator's wings flickered briefly, a gesture of acknowledgement. Very well. Humanity shall undertake the test. Prepare yourselves. As the human delegation left the chamber, their confident stride remained steady. Behind them, the council members continued their whispered debates. Many doubted humanity's chances. The test had been designed to challenge the most advanced civilizations, and every species had faltered before finding their way. How could a species born of chaos and conflict possibly succeed? But a few among the council watched with quiet curiosity. They had seen something in the humans' gaze, something unsettling, yes, but also unyielding. The kind of resolve that could only be forged in fire. The council chamber was silent as the test's parameters were projected in glowing detail. A vast hologram unfurled in the center of the room, its symbols and diagrams spinning slowly, revealing the intricate nature of the challenge. Every species in the chamber leaned forward, their various forms tense with anticipation. For many, the test was a reminder of their own failures, the moments when their civilizations faltered under its pressure. The test had no bias, no malice. It simply reflected the truth of a species. The facilitator stepped forward to address the room. As you all know, the test is not merely a physical or intellectual challenge. It evaluates a species' capacity to adapt, cooperate, and uphold their moral compass under duress. It is designed to expose their essence. A crystalline ambassador spoke, its voice a harmonious resonance. It's designed to break them, it corrected. The test doesn't reveal the best of a species. It reveals their worst. Perhaps, the facilitator allowed. But that revelation is often necessary. Only by confronting those weaknesses can a species truly grow. The hologram shifted, displaying an environment that changed rapidly, a dense jungle, a barren desert, a frozen tundra, and then a labyrinthine cityscape. These are the simulations, the facilitator continued. Each challenge is designed to replicate the conditions and decisions that define a species' resilience. Resources will be scarce. Threats, both external and internal, will be constant. An aquatic delegate, their translucent form shimmering with agitation, bubbled in protest. But the test is calibrated for species that value peace and cooperation. Humanity comes from a world of violence. They may see these scenarios as an extension of their normal existence. That is precisely what we aim to observe, the facilitator said. How will they respond when their survival instincts are pushed to the limit? When their morality is tested under conditions they find familiar? The avian delegate, feathers bristling, interjected. This test has humbled species far more advanced and refined than humans. We faced dilemmas of sacrifice and unity and failed before learning. Do you truly believe humans, those who are known for their division and conflict, can succeed where we stumbled? The facilitator tilted its head, the neural translation system ensuring its response was heard by all. The test is impartial. If humanity's history of conflict defines them, then they will fail. If they are more than their history, they may surprise us. Meanwhile, in the observation deck, alien spectators began to gather. They were representatives of species who had already endured the test, each with their own scars. A reptilian observer whispered to a companion, "When my people undertook the test, the moral dilemmas nearly shattered us. The choice to save one colony at the expense of another, we are still haunted by it." A gelatinous figure beside it rippled in agreement. "My kind failed when cooperation broke down. We turned on each other when the simulations became too dire. I wonder if humans, so accustomed to chaos, will even recognize the stakes." The simulations began. The humans were inserted into the first scenario, a vast, inhospitable desert under a burning sun. From the start, the challenges came in rapid succession. Water was scarce, predators stalked the night, and the environment itself seemed designed to break them. For alien species watching, this would have been the first hurdle. For the humans, it was met with almost casual efficiency. "They're laughing," one observer remarked, astonished. Indeed, the humans, even as they worked to secure water and shelter, exchanged jokes and banter. One of them remarked that the simulation reminded them of stories from Earth's deserts. Another compared the simulated predators to animals from their homeworld. There was no fear, only a grim kind of joy in facing the challenge. The hologram shifted again, throwing the humans into the next scenario, a dense urban environment, crumbling and overrun with dangers. This time, the challenge was one of morality. A resource cache had been left, but it was only enough to save half their team. The alien observers leaned forward, expecting the breakdown they had seen so many times before in other species. But the humans didn't fight. They debated, they argued, but the tension never turned to violence. Instead, they pooled their knowledge and devised a plan that spread the resources thin enough to give everyone a chance. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than sacrificing half the group outright. They refused to accept the premise, an avian observer murmured. They're rewriting the parameters of the test. The facilitator watched silently, their multifaceted eyes reflecting the unfolding events. For all the skepticism in the room, it was clear that humanity was not approaching the test like any species before them. Where others saw insurmountable challenges, humans saw problems to be solved, rules to be bent, and opportunities to innovate. They adapt, the facilitator said quietly, more to themselves than anyone else. The test is designed to reveal a species' essence. And perhaps this is theirs. The test moved into its final and most intricate phase. The simulations now grew impossibly complex, layering moral dilemmas, environmental hazards, and psychological trials. For most species, this was where everything fell apart. The scenarios were no longer about survival or clever solutions. They were about choices, the kind that lingered long after the simulations ended. The humans, however, approached this phase with the same resolute energy that had carried them through the earlier trials. The first challenge of the phase was deceptively simple: save one or save many. A holographic city was crumbling, its infrastructure failing, fires raging across its skyline. On one side, a single child cried for help, trapped under debris. On the other, a group of adults was stranded on a collapsing bridge. The humans paused, their expressions solemn. For the alien observers, this was a familiar sight: the hesitation, the indecision, the eventual fractures in unity. But the humans didn't splinter. They split into two groups without hesitation, allocating their resources and manpower. "We don't have to choose," one of them said simply. "We do both. It's going to be messy, but when isn't it?" They threw themselves into the task, pushing against time and probability. Though they suffered setbacks and injuries, they refused to abandon either goal. A crystalline observer spoke in hushed tones. "They're refusing the binary framework. Every other species treated this as a choice dictated by logic. The humans are operating on sheer defiance." The holographic city dissolved, transitioning into the next simulation. This time, the challenge struck at their unity. The group was presented with a fabricated scenario in which one of their members had betrayed them. A false trail of evidence was laid out: missing supplies, secret communications, and misleading context. The test was designed to test trust, to see how easily paranoia could tear them apart. The humans gathered around the supposed traitor, scrutinizing the evidence. The accused person, visibly shaken, protested their innocence. The tension was palpable, but instead of spiraling into accusations and chaos, the group turned the challenge on its head. "Why would they do it?" one of them asked. "The motive doesn't make sense. If this was real, the betrayal would have to serve a purpose." Another chimed in. "It's too convenient. The timing, the evidence, it feels manufactured. What if this is just another layer of the test?" They worked together, deconstructing the scenario rather than succumbing to it. They questioned the validity of the evidence, cross-referenced details, and eventually dismantled the narrative entirely. The accused person, instead of being ostracized, was reintegrated without hesitation. The observers were stunned. A reptilian delegate hissed quietly. They dismantled the trap instead of falling into it. "How is that possible?" "They trust each other," an aquatic ambassador murmured. "Even under pressure, they prioritized unity." "It's unsettling." The final simulation was the most harrowing. The humans were placed in a scenario where survival seemed impossible. Their simulated environment became increasingly hostile: raging storms, dwindling resources, and escalating dangers. On top of this, They were presented with an escape option, a single pod that could carry one person to safety. The rest would perish. The escape pod loomed in the hologram, a stark reminder of the stakes. The humans gathered around it, their expressions grim. For many species, this was the moment of collapse. Self-preservation often overpowered collective survival. The Council had seen it countless times. But the humans did something unexpected. They dismantled the pod. They tore it apart and scavenged its components, using the materials to create makeshift tools and resources. It wasn't enough to save everyone, but it bought them time. They rationed their remaining supplies, fortified their shelter, and continued to work as a unit. They didn't even consider using it for one person, an avian observer said, their feathers trembling. They saw it as a resource, not an escape. The facilitator watched silently, their gaze fixed on the humans' actions. The test was revealing something entirely different from what it had with other species. Humanity's defiance of the scenarios, their refusal to accept limitations, was reshaping the very purpose of the challenge. As the final simulation dissolved, the humans stood together, battered but unbroken. The test had pushed them to their limits, but they had pushed back harder. For the first time, the council chamber was silent not with judgment, but with something bordering on awe. The test was over, the simulations ended, and the chamber was still. The humans stood in the center of the room, visibly exhausted but unshaken. They didn't cheer, didn't celebrate. They simply waited. Around them, the gathered species whispered among themselves, trying to make sense of what they had witnessed. For many, it was unprecedented. For others, it was unsettling. But for all, it was impossible to ignore. The facilitators stepped forward, their wings glinting in the holographic light. Their voice carried a note of neutrality, though it was clear they were processing the results in real time. Humanity has completed the test. Their performance was unconventional. A crystalline delegate, still visibly perturbed, interjected. Unconventional? They disregarded the parameters of nearly every challenge. They didn't follow the test as it was designed. The human in the center of the group stepped forward. Their expression was calm, their voice measured. We didn't disregard the test. We approached it the only way we know how. The way we've always approached challenges, by questioning the rules and finding our own solutions. An aquatic delegate bubbled with incredulity. But the test isn't meant to be solved by defiance. It's meant to measure a species' ability to operate within the boundaries of cooperation, morality, and survival. That's exactly what we did, the human replied. We cooperated because we trusted each other. We upheld our morality by refusing to abandon anyone. And we survived because we refused to accept failure as an option. The room fell silent. For the first time, the council members truly understood what had transpired. Humanity hadn't succeeded in spite of the test. They had succeeded because of who they were. Their resilience, their adaptability, their refusal to accept the impossible. These weren't flaws. They were the essence of their strength. The facilitator tilted their head, addressing the humans directly. Your performance raises questions. The test is designed to evaluate conformity to universal principles of cooperation and morality. Yet you approached it with methods that challenge those principles. How do you justify this? The human's gaze didn't waver. The test isn't wrong. It's a reflection of what every species needs to confront. But we've learned something from our history, from our home. The universe doesn't care about rules. It doesn't care about fairness. It throws chaos at you, and you either adapt or you die. We chose to adapt. A reptilian delegate hissed, their golden eyes narrowing. Adaptation is one thing, but your kind thrives on conflict. How can we trust that this defiance won't translate to aggression? The human smiled faintly, though there was no humor in it. We're not perfect. We've made mistakes. But conflict taught us something valuable: how to solve problems under pressure, how to build when everything around us is falling apart. We're not asking you to trust us blindly. We're asking you to recognize that our way works for us. An avian delegate, who had remained quiet until now, spoke softly. And what are the test's purpose? To reveal the flaws in a species, so they can grow. The human's voice softened. The flaws are there. They always will be. We're not immune to fear, to selfishness, to mistakes. But we face those flaws every day, and we grow in spite of them. The test didn't break us because we've already faced the worst and come out the other side. The facilitator's wings flickered, and for a moment, the room seemed to hold its collective breath. Humanity, they began, their voice carrying a weight that stilled the whispers. You have demonstrated resilience, ingenuity, and unity under pressure. Your methods challenge the conventions of the test, but they also highlight the diversity of approaches needed for survival in an unpredictable universe. The humans didn't react immediately. They stood quietly as the council deliberated. For them, the test wasn't about approval or validation. It was about proving to themselves and the galaxy that they belonged. The decision wasn't entirely unexpected, but when it came, it carried a weight that rippled through the chamber. Humanity has passed the test, the facilitator declared. Not by traditional standards, but by demonstrating a unique and undeniable strength. You have shown that there is no single path to survival, no singular method for growth. The humans nodded, their relief quiet but palpable. As they turned to leave, the room buzzed with a mixture of admiration, skepticism, and curiosity. They had done more than pass the test. They had redefined it, leaving an indelible mark on the council and every species present. As the chamber doors closed behind them, the whispers continued. Some species were uneasy, others inspired. But all of them understood one thing. Humanity was not what they had expected. They were something entirely different. And in the vast, unpredictable expanse of the galaxy, that difference might be exactly what was needed.